All right, so what's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name's Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. We will be covering the second part of this story that I covered about Sudan about a few weeks ago, about 4 weeks ago. You can check out the first video here. This is on my channel under my video section. I did not go live for this one, but I wanted to cover this story for a long time, but I've just been caught up teaching English, doing some other projects, doing movie reviews, covering other stories as well, but I have not forgotten about what's happening in Sudan. This story is way more important than what's happening in Palestine. This story is more pertinent to Black life than what's happening in Palestine. This story is a tragedy that is unfolding right now in real time, and the world is generally silent because we are too caught up in the issues of other people that do not look like us. Meanwhile, the people that many Black people are supporting are identifying with the people who are terrorizing us, who are literally terrorizing us. So this is a story from Reuters. This is another special report. This might be an hour-long live stream, but I will be going live again today because I have some other stories I want to cover. Let's talk about it. The Sudanese commanders waging war on the Masalit. So General Abdul Rahim Juma of Sudan's Rapid Support Forces addresses troops in this video posted on social media in November. Witnesses allege Juma played a key role in directing attacks in the West Darfur city of El Janina. Once again, go check out the previous video I did about this story to get the full context of what is happening in Sudan. By the way, I have the live comment section open, so anybody that wants to leave a comment, I will be reading your comment live while it comes out. Let me know how you feel about this story or any other background information you want to tell me. Let's get into it. The Masalit people of Western Sudan are being driven from the country in a campaign of bombing and massacres by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces and its Arab militia allies. Reuters has identified 6 key commanders in the violence. This piece was written by Maggie Michelle or Maggie Michael, published on December 28th, 2023 for Reuters.com. Let's go to the Chad and Sudan border. Shout out to the people of Chad and shout out to my brother Saeed out there doing good work trying to bring water to the people who do not have access to clean drinking water in Chad. Y'all go support him and his efforts. And let's go in here to the story. Survivors have identified 6 Arab paramilitary commanders and militia leaders who they say played a key role in directing the ethnically targeted violence in the Sudanese city of El Janina that killed thousands and forced hundreds of thousands to flee the country. The commanders and militia leaders directed their forces to shell densely populated displaced persons camps and districts in the city with rockets and mortars, and were seen giving orders to their forces as the attacks unfolded, according to more than 20 people who survived the assault and are now living in a refugee camp on Chad's border with Sudan. This, aside from the part about Chad and Sudan, this is literally copy and paste what the Zionist occupying force of the region of Palestine are doing to the Palestinian people in Gaza. Yet and still, when we have these people who identify as Arab, and yes, I will be talking about their blackness later and their Arab ethnicity or Arab identity. I will be talking about that later. These people who I presume wrongly having their lives taken or their rights trampled upon and that sort of stuff, these people have no remorse about doing that same sort of violence that the Zionist Israeli occupying force in their mass extinction event of the Palestinians, they have no remorse on doing this to their fellow citizens and people that look just like them. Yet and still, because of their Arab identity or Islamic faith, they decide that these lives of the people of the Masalit people, the black tribe there, are worthless and worth slaughter. Let's go more into the story. Much of the violence was directed at the ethnic African Masalit tribe, who comprised the majority in El Janina until the attacks forced their mass exodus from the city. The violence, which began in late April and peaked in June, reignited in early November. Some of the commanders identified by the survivors are part of the Arab dominated Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, a paramilitary that has gained the upper hand in widening war with the Sudanese armed forces for control of the country. The others include leaders of Arab militia forces allied with the RSF. These militias have been involved in multiple rounds of ethnic violence against the Masalits and other dark skinned African tribes over the past 2 decades. Earlier this month, the United States determined that the RSF and its militia allies had committed crimes against humanity and ethnic cleansing. And if the United States is going to declare the Houthis a terrorist organization or Hamas a terrorist organization, they need to identify the Rapid Support Forces as a terrorist organization for what they are doing. If they are committing crimes against humanity, if they are committing genocide against people, they need to be labeled as well as terrorists. So here's a picture here, a very tragic picture. A woman who fled the violence in West Darfur prepares food in a makeshift shelter in August in the Chadian town of Ajre on the border with Sudan. About 500,000 people, most of them members of the Masalit tribe, have fled to Chad as a result of RSF attacks. Very sad to see people living in dilapidated conditions, no different than the people who are fleeing Gaza, forced to be on the border at the Rafah crossing in Israel, between Israel and Egypt, living in makeshift housing and stuff like that. We have all the sympathy in the world for those people, but the world is generally silent and negligent of the tragedy unfolding these black people in Sudan who are being targeted by these Arab militias. Let's continue here. In hundreds of interviews with Reuters since the purge of the Masalit began in April, survivors have described horrific scenes of bloodletting in El Janina and on the 30-kilometer route from the city to the border with Chad as people fled for their lives. In attacks by RSF forces and allied Arab militias, survivors said women were gang raped, babies had their throats slit and were clubbed to death. People were rammed by vehicles, burned alive in their homes, and picked off in the streets by snipers. Absolutely tragic that this is happening. Nobody deserves to have this happen to them, especially the innocents. Women and children are sacred. In Islam, they talk about only committing violence against people who are the actual soldiers and the aggressors, not targeting the innocent civilians. Yet and still, throughout the Islamic world, and I'm a Muslim myself, I can say this, the hypocrisy of the Muslims is so evident. In every Muslim country, we see the hypocrisy of the Muslims all around us, all around us. And these people who say that they are trying to cleanse Sudan to make it the Islamic Caliphate or an Islamic state, or they don't want any kafirs in their borders and that sort of stuff, they are going about it in a way that makes Islam look extremely bad. And as a Muslim, I am horrified to hear that people who probably proclaim La ilaha illallah, all that stuff, they proclaim that, yet and still, what do they do? What do they do? The worst sorts of haram that you could ever imagine. Going to continue here. Among the RSF commanders identified by survivors in General Abdul Rahman Juma, the paramilitary's chief for the Sudanese state of West Darfur, whose capital is El Janina. 5 witnesses in the city placed Juma at the scene of attacks on Masalit civilians between April and June, separately. The U.S. government said in September that forces under his command were involved in the mid-June killing of the region's governor, a Masalit politician, a charge Juma denied. Survivors identified several other key players who led RSF and militia operations in the city. Idris Hassan, a former RSF commander of West Darfur and currently a senior RSF officer, Masar Asil, a top Arab tribal leader, the deputy of the slain governor Al-Tijam Khartoum, Arab militia leader Musa Angir, and a militia known as Marfain, or the hyena. Okay, so these are the guys right here. So I think now is a good time to talk about blackness and Arab identity. I've spoken up before about the black Arabs who inhabit all the Arab countries. Any country that you think of as the Middle East or MENA, North Africa, they all have a sizable black population. In Morocco, in Libya, in Tunisia, in Egypt, in Jordan, in Sudan, you will find black people there who dress like the Arabs, speak the Arabic language in perfect form, worship Allah, all that sort of stuff. Your Arab identity does not supersede your black identity. I think we have to get this clear, especially as black Muslims, especially as black Arabs. Our black identity does not supersede our Arab identity. And acting out violence towards black people is a part of Arab supremacy if you are a black person who identifies as an Arab, but yet and still you will inflict that harm to your people under the name of your Arabness or under the name of Islam and that sort of stuff. I'm keeping this absolutely real. And as a black Muslim, I have to keep this absolutely real. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's the same as if a black person is acting upon white supremacy to subjugate black people. That is the same thing that is happening here with these black people who are dark as hell. This brother here is darker than me, yet and still he can sit with these people who are going to commit war crimes, crimes against humanity, against other black people in his country under the name of Islam or under the name of Arabness or under the name of just fighting for some cause that he believes in. Absolutely wrong. Number one, it's haram. It's absolutely haram to raise up flags and fight for nationalities. And another thing, it's absolutely haram to target women and children. Let's keep this absolutely real. Let's keep it absolutely clear. Just because they are dark skinned black men who are committing war crimes under the name of Islam, that does not take away the fact that this is white supremacy and Arab supremacy in play. Let's go here. So, in July, the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, told the UN Secretary Council that his office had begun investigating alleged atrocities in Darfur, including sexual violence and crimes against children. According to a person familiar with the probe, three of the people identified by the survivors for this story are being investigated by the ICC: Juma, Karshum, and Asil. The person, speaking on condition of anonymity because of the sensitivity of the matter, said the three men were the subject of allegations, which means ICC investigators have information suggesting they were involved in crimes. That does not mean that the three would ultimately be prosecuted, the person said. I heard some people say that the ICC or the ICJ only target generally, black people. Like the only people who have generally been locked up, if I remember from the ICC, have been black African warlords, right? Meanwhile, right now, we're seeing South Africa take Israel to court for their crimes against humanity in Gaza. But I would be happy actually if the ICC or ICJ actually locked up these men: Juma, Karshum, Asil, anybody associated with the RSF who are committing war crimes against black people in Darfur. That absolutely needs to happen. Now, the ICC needs to be reformed. They need to hold other war criminals accountable, like all the white Europeans who committed atrocities during the Yugoslav wars and that sort of stuff. But yet and still, everybody needs to be punished for these crimes against humanity that are happening all across the planet. Going to continue here. Reuters could not independently corroborate all the accounts of the roles played by RSF and Arab militia leaders in the violence, but witnesses were consistent in describing the patterns of violence and sequence of events in the assault on the city. In some instances, multiple people provided similar details about the specific commanders they identified, such as the type of vehicle they traveled in, how they were dressed, the types of weapons carried by their forces, or the districts where they were spotted. So I want to speak up about this. There are some people who would say, Simon, all you do is read mainstream media. All you do is take what the news says on face value. Listen, I am just researching information and providing information that is coming from a very reputable source. Reuters, by and large, is one of the gold standards in media. It's one of the gold standards and one of the number one truth tellers when it comes to reporting news all over the world. They don't just put out false information in Reuters. All right, let's keep this absolutely real. Yet and still, if I'm just reading mainstream media, how is your news source any more valid than mine? I'm pretty sure what informs you is pretty much what you get from YouTube, what you pick up from some, deep underground news source and that sort of stuff. I'm reading from Reuters, reporting the information for y'all and letting y'all know what's happening in our black world. Now let's go here. This is the RSF leader Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hameti, has been based in West Darfur. The United States has determined that the RSF and its militia allies committed crimes against humanity and ethnic cleansing during the conflict this year in Sudan. Once again, this man's blackness, as you see, me and him are about the same shade. Some might even say he's darker than me. Yet and still, he is committing war crimes against black people in Sudan, in his own country, under the name of power, under the name of gaining wealth for himself, under the name of Arab supremacy, which has been a constant factor in Sudan's history. In Sudan, it's been a constant conflict between the people who identify as the Muslim Arab superior upper class, the dominant society, against the blacks who are Christian, animist, or even blacks who are Muslim themselves, darker skinned blacks. Sudan is ruled by tribes, Sudan is ruled by allegiances to clans, and Sudan is ruled by Arab supremacists, something that needs to be spoken about, something that needs to be talked about. If all these black people across the world are going to wave Palestinian flags and go out and march for these people and say that we need to free Palestine and we need to advocate for the Arabs' cause, where are the Arabs around the world speaking up against this? Where are the Arabs all across the world who are fighting for Palestine, speaking out against these atrocities committed by people who claim to be Muslim, who claim to be Arab, even though they are black as hell? And in most other Arab countries, they would get treated like the Zanj or the Abids in Egypt or Morocco or Jordan or Saudi Arabia. Where are all the people speaking out against these people who are committing crimes against humanity? Let's keep this absolutely real. All right. I'm going to continue here. Reuters is not publishing the full names of the survivors interviewed for this report to protect them from possible retaliation. The Chad Sudan border is porous, and refugees say they have seen members of the RSF in markets on the Chad side of the border in recent months. The survivor testimonies gathered by Reuters since the purge of the Masalit began this year indicate the campaign against the tribe has been systematic and coordinated. Masalit men, from infants to adults, were targeted for killing in the attacks. Women who were human rights activists in the city were hunted down and raped. Largely, Masalit inhabited districts and refugee camps were shelled. In September, the United States imposed sanctions on Deputy RSF leader Abdul Rahim Hamdan Dagalo for his connection to abuses by the RSF against civilians in Sudan, including conflict-related sexual violence and killings based on ethnicity. Dagalo, who has denied the charges, is the brother of RSF leader Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hameti. Hameti has not been sanctioned. Okay, that definitely needs to happen. Sure, some sanctions need to be imposed on him. He needs to be punished for his crimes and barred from leaving his country, barred from accessing capital across the world, barred from, receiving funds from other sources for as much as we can do as the United States, because we control the purse strings of the world and that sort of stuff. Yet and still, he needs to be prosecuted. He needs to be taken in. All these people, regardless of who they are, they need to be hunted down, and we need to find them. All right, going to continue here. The conflict in Darfur erupted days after the war broke out in the capital, Khartoum, between the Sudanese army and the RSF, who fell out over a plan to integrate their forces as part of a transition to democracy. More than 7 million people have fled their homes since the war began, according to the United Nations Refugee Agency, or UNHCR. In Darfur, competition for land and water has fueled years of conflict between Arab and non-Arab tribes. In the early 2000s, the Masalites and other non-Arab rebels in the early 2000s, the Masalit and other non Arabs rebelled after enduring repeated attacks from Arab forces. The government of President Omar al Bashir armed Arab militias known as the Janjaweed to help crush the uprising. So the Masalit people and the black people in the western part of Sudan started fighting back and defending themselves. And we need to remember that in all these stories of black tragedy and all these stories of black pain, there are black men, black women, black people in general who are ready to fight and die over maintaining our freedom, our sovereignty, our respect, our dignity as people. We should never tell our stories about the conflicts that we're involved in or the pain that happens to us and just think, okay, these people are just laying down and being hurt and they're not fighting back. They're always fighting back. The Masalit have fought back. The black people that were transported across the Atlantic to the slave colonies all across the Americas always fought back. Everywhere we go, we always fight back with our words and sometimes with brutal force when that is necessary. And what is happening to the Masalit definitely deserves, they have the right to self-defense and for self-governance and independence. So I'm going to continue here. The RSF evolved from the Janjaweed, and like the Janjaweed, it draws its leaders and many fighters from the Rizigats, one of the largest Arab tribes in Darfur. RSF leader Hameti is a Rizigat. He has said this year's violence in Darfur is the result of a tribal conflict, and his forces have no role in it. Pardon if I'm breaking up the pronunciation, Rizigate. I don't know how to pronounce that, but you get the idea. So, Masalit leaders accuse the Arab forces of progressively driving them off their land. Now they say the RSF is trying to finish the job and expel them completely. Here's Abdul Rahim Hamdan Dagalo Center, deputy leader of the RSF, celebrates with the paramilitary's West Darfur commander, General Abdul Rahman Juma, right after the RSF seized the Sudanese army base in El Janina in early November. Washington sanctioned Dagalo, whose brother heads the paramilitary, over his connection to abuses by the RSF against civilians in Sudan. The screen grab is from a video posted on the RSF account on X in November. Very interesting. So, one of the most influential Arab fighters identified by witnesses is Asil, who is a leader of the Rizagat tribe. Three witnesses identified him as one of the Arab militia commanders who led the attacks. A Masalit tribal leader in El Janina said he saw Asil in a neighborhood called Donkey 13 in mid June, traveling in a Land Cruiser and checking on the positions of Arab fighters. In an interview with Reuters in September, Asil blamed the Masalit for the outbreak of violence and said Arab forces were responding to attacks by the Masalit. The accounts given by the Masalites were all lies, he said. Asil denied he was a militia commander and said he had no relationship with the RSF. I am innocent, he added. Asil didn't respond to follow up questions for this story. Weeks after the second round of purges against the Masali in early November, a video was posted on an official RSF social media channel. Asil, along with Juma and Khartoum, the deputy governor, are seen addressing an event in El Janina billed as a festival for peaceful coexistence. The Arab tribes had no enmity toward the Masali, Asil told the crowd. We forget the past and we are turning a new page with you, he declared in the video, which was identified by the Center for Information Resilience's Sudan Witness Project. Khartoum had a similar message. War is over, he said. Now we need societal peace and coexistence. So this is all lies because these stories continue to come out about the Masalites having tragedies put upon them. And people are witnessing these people being involved with the militias. As they see here, Asil is driving up to where the militias are and checking on the positions of the fighters. So obviously, these people are still working in tandem, working in conjunction. And it's just like how the Israelis love to say, we want peaceful coexistence with the Palestinians. Palestinians are not being genocided. Their population keeps going up. All the arguments that the Israelis give for why they are not committing a genocide against the Palestinians, yet and still what is happening to the people in the Darfur region, to the Masalit people. They are being persecuted, they are being bombarded, their women are being raped, and that sort of stuff. And yet and still, the people in power say, oh, nothing's happening. We want peaceful coexistence. You can't have peaceful coexistence at the barrel of a gun. So, Abdul Rahman Juma, RSF commander of West Darfur. So, Washington has said that forces under Juma's command were involved in the killing of the West Darfur governor in El Janina in June. Juma, who denied the charges, is seen here in a photo posted on the RSF account on X. Once again, this man is blacker than me. Yes, he is darker than me. That is a dark-skinned black man. That man is blackety black. That man's Wesley Snipes black. That man, when you turn off the lights, you have to put your hands out in the room to find him. I can roast him for his blackness all he wants because this man is an Arab version of a Koon. This word is now banned on YouTube for some reason. For some reason, I can no longer say the word Koon. So I have to call him that. I have to call him that. If you're targeting black people, if you're committing atrocities against a tribe of people, number one, it's un-Islamic. Number two, it's not cool. And number three, it's racist. You're fighting for Arab supremacy. And we are not rocking with you here, brother man. We are not rocking with you here, Nightstick. We're not rocking with you, Midnight. That is a dark-skinned black man. This man, dark as hell, man. That man is dark, dark. I can do that. I don't do the colorism thing. I know people might clip this out of proportion and say, oh, Simon's colorist now. I'm not colorist at all. I love all black people, light skin, dark skin, brown skin, whatever, whatever. But I just do not like war criminals. If you're a war criminal, you can get roasted for anything. I'm going to continue here. All right. Juma is the most senior leader placed at the head of the attacks in El Janina by the witnesses who spoke to Reuters. Five described seeing him with his forces issuing instructions at different times and places during the assault on the Masalit between April and June. The RSF-led attacks began in late April with the shelling of Masalit neighborhoods. RSF forces under Juma pushed toward the city's Al-Madris area, according to the five witnesses. Thousands of Masalit sought shelter in the area, which is adjacent to the governor's office, and Masalit fighters gathered there to make a stand. RSF-led forces shelled Al-Madris from surrounding positions, according to multiple survivors. El Janina hosted dozens of displaced persons camps that were largely inhabited by Masalit uprooted in earlier violence, and these too came under fire. A number of camps were razed to the ground, according to three witnesses and a review of satellite images of these areas. Two of the witnesses said they saw destroyed camps upon returning to El Janina after fleeing to Chad to look for missing relatives. Bulldozers were used to demolish the remaining shacks, several survivors said. A former politician, oh, pardon, a former policeman who lived in the displaced persons camps of Al Hojaj, close to RSF headquarters in the city, said he encountered Juma 3 times in late April, shortly after the assault on the city began. After entering the camp with his forces, Juma gave orders to shell the area. I could see him pointing in different directions to bomb, the man said. The ex policeman said he and other men in the camp took up arms to defend their families. We had nowhere to go. We were trapped. He later fled to Chad. A satellite image taken on June 21st, just days after the violence ended, showed that much of the Al Hojaj camp had been destroyed. So here is the camp before. Here is a refugee camp. Let's think about this. If this was an image of a Palestinian refugee camp, and then you saw this the next day, people would say, oh, that's a tragedy. Oh, the horror. Oh, how could this happen to innocent people? How could this happen to the innocents? Yet and still, when we're talking about black people here, this is a camp full of black people, a camp full of black people who had to flee their homes because the Arabs are chasing them out and burning their homes to the ground and then raping and attacking their women and even killing kids, killing boys, because that's what I spoke about in this last video. That's what I spoke about in this last video. The Arabs in Sudan are literally killing baby boys because they don't want a generation of fighters to come after. Yet and still, we're more worried about Palestine. This is a tragedy. These satellite pictures reveal the damage in the Al Hojaj displaced persons camp in El Janina. Top image was taken on April 19th, before the violence began. The bottom image, which shows extensive damage, was taken on June 21st, after the violence subsided. Absolutely horrible. Horrible, horrible that this is happening to people in refugee camps made up of mostly women and children and people trying to rebuild their lives. Two other Masalit men who took up arms against the RSF said they saw Juma in another part of the city in mid-May. He was in Al Jamarak, a district in western El Janina where RSF headquarters are located. Both said Juma was telling his forces where to aim as they were shelling the Al Madris area, close to where the governor's compound was located. One of the Masalit fighters, 37-year-old Abdel Jalil, said he spotted Juma 4 times in May, dressed in military fatigues and the RSF's red beret. On one occasion, Abdel Jalil said Juma was traveling in a convoy of vehicles mounted with anti-aircraft guns close to the RSF headquarters. He oversees the assault, but he doesn't engage himself in the fighting, Abdel Jalil said. The next month, on June 14th, a Masalit activist for displaced persons said he saw Juma dressed in military uniform and carrying an assault rifle. He was giving orders to a large contingent of RSF fighters to target the Al Madris area with mortars and RPGs, the activist said. Mortars rained down on people sheltering in the area that day, according to multiple survivors who were there. The same day, West Darfur Governor Khamis Abakar, himself a Masalit, publicly condemned the actions of the RSF in the city, accusing the paramilitary of genocide. He was killed by RSF forces that same day. Wow. 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 Reuters reported at the time. Footage posted on social media showed Abu Bakr being led into Juma's office at RSF headquarters in the city. Later, pictures of his body being mutilated also appeared on social media. Absolutely horrible, horrible that this happened to this man. Oh, that's hard. You go out and speak up for your people and say, hey, what these paramilitary forces are doing in my city, these Arab militias are coming through and slaughtering the black people who live in my tribe. And then the next day, he is cut up and his body is all over social media. Wow, wow. And then the Arabs want to talk about peace. Then the Arabs want to talk about peace here. Absolutely insane. And nobody's talking about this. I haven't seen any other YouTuber covering this story. Nobody is talking about this story. Why? Because it doesn't get views, it doesn't get clicks. Because when we talk about black life and black people literally being slaughtered by the Arabs, nobody cares. Because this is an African issue, nobody cares. We got all the time in the world for Palestine. We got all the time in the world for Ukraine. We got all the time in the world for all the other issues. But when black people are literally being slaughtered in Sudan, in an African nation, by an Arab militia, nobody cares. Nobody cares. My last video got 112 views. I got 3 people in this chat. 112 views about black people being slaughtered in a genocide happening in 2024, and nobody cares. This is the world we live in. And y'all want me to stop what I'm doing? I will never stop what I'm doing. Never. So I'm going to continue here. In September, the U.S. State Department said the men who killed the governor were led by Juma and announced sanctions against him. In an audio message posted on an RSF social media page, Juma said the governor was killed by an angry mob while trying to escape to Chad. He had tried to help the governor by arranging transport for him to Chad, Juma said. Juma did not respond to questions for this report sent to him via the RSF. He has denied that the paramilitary was involved in the bloodshed in El Janina. Violence flared anew in early November. Hundreds of Masalit men were rounded up by Arab forces, according to dozens of survivors. Some of these captives were executed in the outlying Ardamata district of El Janina, according to at least 30 witnesses. After the RSF overran the Sudanese army base in El Janina in early November, Juma can be seen in a video posted on an RSF social media channel addressing his troops outside the base and hailing RSF leader Hameti. At the time, dozens of witnesses told Reuters a killing campaign by RSF forces and Arab militias was underway in Ardamata, the district where the army base is located. Masalit men, in particular, were targeted. The European Union said more than 1,000 Masalit were killed in the rampage. Absolutely horrible. Here is another war criminal who needs to be locked up, Idris Hassan, RSF Brigadier General, right here. Once again, this man in this picture, lighter than me. Little light skinned man. Got the same complexion as Terrence Howard. Or he might be using that Sammy Sosa bleaching cream. Who knows? Maybe he want to be an Arab that bad. I studied Arabic. You can find the videos on my channel of me studying Arabic, but I never would try to bleach my skin. I would never try to be something I'm not. I'm always going to be black. I'm always going to be me. I'm always going to keep it real. I'm always going to keep it raw. And yes, I am not a colorist, but I will definitely roast. I will definitely roast any war criminal. Any war criminal I see will get the roasting here. So witnesses say they saw RSF Brigadier General Idris Hassan, seen in this photo, posted on the paramilitary's account on X, directing forces that attack civilian areas in El Janina. Also spotted in the attacks was Idris Hassan, an RSF brigadier general and member of the Rizagat tribe. Hassan was part of the Arab forces used by former dictator Bashir to crush the rebellion by the non-Arab tribes in the early 2000s. Bashir faces genocide charges by the ICC over his role in the violence. Three witnesses said they saw Hassan in May directing RSF forces who were attacking civilian areas largely populated by the Masalites. El Tayyib, a 34-year-old Masalit who took up arms when hostilities began, said he saw Hassan in the city's Al Jabal district in mid-May. Hassan arrived in a mud-covered white Land Cruiser mounted with an anti-aircraft gun. He was supervising the forces that shelled the district. I'm not even going to lie. African warlords roll in style. How you roll around with the Jeep with the anti-aircraft gun at the top. Now that's how you ride dirty. That's how you really ride dirty. That's how you really ride with that thing on you. Imagine getting pulled over by the police. You're riding in your whip, and he asks you why you got the anti-aircraft missile tank gun on top of your car, and he's like, and you're like, man, I got to keep the strap. It's my constitutional right. Castle doctrine. I'm sorry. I just had to find some humor in this. Sorry. So let's go here. Death trap. Multiple witnesses told Reuters that the RSF and its allied Arab militias shelled civilian areas in El Janina for weeks and then ambushed and killed people fleeing for Chad. Entire areas of the city, mainly Masalit districts, were razed to the ground. Here is Sudan, large African country right here. Used to be the largest in Africa until South Sudan thankfully split. It borders Egypt, Libya, Chad, and I believe Uganda right here. Yeah, and I think this is Ethiopia right here to its east, southeast border. And here is El Janina right on the border with Chad. So here are the areas burned or destroyed in the attacks. They're all in red on the map. Here is Al Zohra Dormitory IDP camp, Abu Zor IDP camp. I think that's internal displacement camp. Here is the Al Jabal district, Al Madris district, Al Jamek district. The RSF headquarters are right here, and routes taken by many civilians as they fled to Chad because the Arabs are just raising hell in this city for the people here. So, open street maps, shuttle radar topography mission. Yeah, that was what we just looked at right here. So, let's go here. Muhammad, a construction worker, said he performed work at Hassan's house a few years ago. Muhammad said he was in the city's Abu Zor displaced persons camp in late May when he recognized Hassan leading a large force that stormed the camp. Hassan, dressed in RSF uniform and wearing a traditional Arab turban, arrived in a convoy of mud covered Land Cruisers. Muhammad said he was hit in the arm by shrapnel during the attack and later fled to Chad. A 39-year-old Masalit doctor told Reuters he saw Hassan in late May leading a convoy of some 30 pickup trucks mounted with anti-aircraft guns, heading to the Masalit district of Al Thara in southern El Janina. Hassan did not respond to questions from Reuters sent to him via the RSF. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so here is Al Tijani Khashum, deputy governor of West Darfur. Once again, we have another very dark skinned black man proclaiming to be an Arab, committing uh, Arab motivated, ethnic motivated, racially motivated, religiously motivated violence against other black people that look like him. This is what's insane about this whole conflict. These are some of the biggest KOONs in the world. If you are out here committing atrocities against people that look like you, all in the name of some foreign religion that is not African, you are a KOON. And that's what I will always refer to you as. And boy, you should be ashamed of yourself with your nasty teeth. This is another thing too. Some of the Arabs, I've lived in the Arab lands. I've seen it. Some of the Arabs got some of the nastiest teeth. Nastiest teeth. Boy, your breath smell like donkey camel dick. Stop it. Stop it, man. You got to be insane. You got to be insane. These people are literally brainwashed. I know I love the Arabic language. I know I'm a Muslim myself, but I would never be this self-hating to perpetrate this sort of violence, all in the name of my tribe, my religion, my Arab ethnicity, as what we are seeing in Sudan. So, witnesses said they saw West Darfur's deputy governor, Al Tijani Khashum, directing artillery fire at the governor's office and other targets in El Janina during the assault on the city. Khashum is seen here in a photo posted on the RSF's account on X. Khartoum became deputy governor of West Darfur in 2022. Four people said they saw Khartoum, a well-known figure locally, with militiamen as Arab forces moved through the city during the attacks. Yunus, a 43-year-old Masalit resident, said he encountered Khartoum on May 6th. Khartoum was riding in the front of a pickup truck carrying about a dozen Arab militiamen. Okay, I don't think any pickup truck can carry a dozen people, even if you put them in the flatbed. That's that sounds like a clown car. How do you fit 12 people in a pickup truck? I'm just thinking it. I'm just thinking that even if you got the what is it, the F-150, right? Two people in the front, about three maybe in the back. What is that? That's all right. That's about what, five people, and then what? You got. How do you fit seven more people in the back of a flatbed pickup truck? To me, that's cramped up. That's disgusting. Imagine the smell. All right, I'm going to go here. Carrying about a dozen Arab militiamen that pulled up outside Yunus's house in the western Al Jamrek district near RSF headquarters. Yunus said four of the militiamen stormed into his home, grilling him at gunpoint about his tribal affiliation and whether he was a soldier. I said, I am not Masalit, he told them. The men searched the house and took all the mobile phones, he said, echoing dozens of other witnesses who told Reuters of militiamen seizing their phones. The men then left and began looting the neighbor's house, Yunus recalled. Days later, Yaqub, a 20-year-old Masalit civilian who took up arms to defend his family, said he saw Khartoum in a Land Cruiser leading an attack on the city's southern Al Jabal district. Khartoum was with the RSF's Hassan during the attack, he said. The fighters were shouting, Nuba, we will kill you, Yaqub said, repeating a term used by Arab tribes in Darfur, meaning slaves. Once again, the Arabs in their regular language, refer to black people as slaves in 2024. This is not a new thing. In any Arab country you go to, they use words like, and this is a new one for me, Nuba, Zanj, Abid, all sorts of racial slurs for black people are thrown in the faces of the black people who inhabit the lands of the Arabs and in North Africa as well. Is this all right? Is this okay? No. And it's even worse that these people are calling these people slaves to their face while they are killing them. while they are killing them. And it's even more insane that the people are doing it look just like the people they are trying to slaughter. But the only difference is they raise up the Quran, they raise up the Hadith, they dress their heads in stupid ass turbans and stuff like this, and say that we are doing it to cleanse this area, to make it clean for the Dar al Islam. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. And I'm so glad I'm covering this story on Juma. Today is a holy day for Muslims all across the world. Millions of people will go to Juma today, but we need to be making du'as for the non Muslims who are being slaughtered by Muslims in a Muslim country. We all should be making du'as for the Masalit people, the black people who are literally being slaughtered by Muslim terrorists in an African nation. But nobody cares. Y'all got all this time to watch every single video about Palestine and Israel. Y'all got all the time in the world to raise up flags for the Arab Palestinians who call black people who are from Gaza and are from the West Bank slaves and zanj to their face. What are we actually talking about here? This is the most important African issue right now. This is way more important than South Africa taking Israel to the ICJ. But nobody's talking about this, right? Because why? We are talking about dead black people. And that's one thing the world absolutely, absolutely does not care about. We will listen to a Normani album before we care about dead black people. That's the world we live in. That is the world we live in. I'm going to continue here. So going back here, days later, Yaqub, a 20-year-old Masalit civilian who took up arms to defend his family, said he saw Khartoum and a Land Cruiser leading an attack on the city's southern Al Jabal district. Khartoum was with the RSF's Hassan during the attack, he said. The fighters were shouting, "Nuba, we will kill you," Yaqub said, repeating a term used by Arab tribes in Darfur, meaning slaves. Multiple witnesses told Reuters that the RSF and Arab militias used the Al Jabal district's elevated position to shell displaced persons camps and neighborhoods inhabited by the Masalit. Two people said they saw Khartoum issuing orders at the Abu Zor displaced persons camp and in Al Madaris. Al Madaris. Okay. Mohammed, a social worker, said he spotted Khartoum on May 20th while sheltering from shelling directed by the RSF at Abu Zor, where his father had been living. From behind a wall where he was taking refuge, Mohammed said he could see and hear Khartoum directly fire towards the governor's office and telling his forces that they were getting close. Mohammed said there was heavy smoke from the bombing that provided him with cover, as there was nothing separating him from Khartoum but the wall. Khartoum, he said, was dressed in an olive green outfit. Absolutely horrible and very hard to look at here. Oh, absolutely a tragedy right here. A Sudanese woman shows burn scars on her hands that she said she sustained in April after RSF and Arab militia forces torched the displaced persons camp where she was in El Janina. The woman said she had to choose between staying in home or escaping and risk being killed by a sniper. Absolutely horrible. Look at this woman's hands. Think about what type of mindset you have to be in. The Arabs literally burned down her house. They burned down her house. And she said, I would rather stay in a burning house than to go outside and be killed by these savages, by these monsters, by these atrocious people. This is what's literally happening to black people in 2024. But we care more about Palestine, right? These hands should scar your mind. These hands should be on everybody's mind. And our hands have blood on them because nobody is speaking up for these people. Nobody's speaking up for actual Africans, black Africans right now being slaughtered by Arabs, having their homes burned down and their women raped and their sons literally killed, like I covered in this video that got 100 something views. Nobody cares about that. Y'all care more about people talking about celebrities, gossip, sports than we actually care about dead black people in 2024. This is what y'all find non-important. This is not worth a click. This is not worth a mention. We got all the time to chat about diaspora wars, whether Africans or African Americans get along. Y'all care more about that than actual black people being slaughtered in Sudan. Think about that. Think about that. Think about that. Oh, absolutely horrible right here. Sharif, a 40-year-old Masalit man, said he saw Khartoum in June in the Al Madris district and heard him instructing troops to direct their fire at the governor's office. That month, Sharif said said he twice saw Khashoggi traveling in a black Land Cruiser and directing attacks on displaced persons camps. In the camp attacks, shells wiped out entire families, said Sharif. On June 13th, he buried dozens of people in the city's Al Jabat cemetery who had been killed. Four of his cousins were killed by the RSF in the city, he said. The former policeman who escaped to Chad said he encountered Khartoum while fleeing El Janina on the morning of June 15th, along with thousands of other Masalit. The deputy governor was accompanied by armed men in RSF uniforms and traditional Arab clothing, riding in three Land Cruisers mounted with machine guns, Khartoum said, was rallying Khartoum was rallying the militiamen, the ex-policeman said. Other survivors have told Reuters that the RSF and Arab militias attacked people repeatedly on the route from El Janina to Chad. Masalit men were shot and women raped at different points along the way, they said. In an interview with Reuters in October, Khartoum said he supported an independent investigation into the violence in El Janina. He said he had tried to mediate between Arab and non-Arab leaders in the city before the war spilled over from Khartoum to El Janina in an attempt to prevent violence. Khartoum didn't respond to follow-up questions about the witness accounts of his role in the fighting. Here is another war criminal, Musa Angir, and let's roast this man real quick. Boy, you look like a book prince. You look like Muammar Gaddafi on crack. Boy, you look like that old pimp that never had one hoe. Man, you look like the militia fighter who got punked by all the other militia fighters and was forced to wear a dress during child time. Man, you look weak as hell. Another light-skinned black man outside pretending to be an Arab. Let's keep it absolutely real. Let's keep it absolutely real. Arab ethnicity, number one, is not a race, and our blackness supersedes our Arabness. And these people like him, claim that their Arab ethnicity is more important than their actual blackness, and Islam actually can get thrown out the window when we are committing atrocities against the Kafirs. And amongst the Masalit, the majority of them are not Muslim, so they say, yep, it's okay to fight them wherever we find them. And this is what the Arabs are doing in 2024. It hurts me to say this as a Muslim. It hurts me to condemn the Muslims that I know who believe in the same things I believe in. They believe in Allah and His Prophet and the day of judgment and resurrection. They believe in all the same things I do. Yet and still, what do these people do? Atrocities in the name of Islam, commit atrocities in the name of their Arab ethnicity and tribe. It's absolutely a shame. Absolutely a shame. Slaughtering women and children, making a woman stay in her house as it burns down because she doesn't want to go outside and be slaughtered by people. Having people flee their homes. This is non-Islamic. This is not cool. This is not something that we need to be proud of as Muslims, and it needs to be called out and spoken about. This is my khutbah for today. This is Sheikh Simon, Imam Simon, calling out my khutbah, calling out my following, calling out my ummah to condemn the people in Sudan who are committing atrocities against the Masalit people. So this is Musa Angir, a commander in an Arab militia, directed forces during the attacks in El Janina, witnesses said. In 2021, he was charged over his involvement in a previous round of violence in the city. The photo of Angir was posted on a Facebook account in his name right here. Angir is the commander of the Third Front Tamazuj, an Arab-dominated militia allied with the RSF that has emerged as a force in the recent violence in West Darfur. 6 people from El Janina described seeing Third Front Tamazuj fighters waging attacks side by side with RSF forces in the city this year. In August, the group formally announced its alliance with the RSF. In 2021, Sudan's prosecutor general charged Angir and more than 30 others with murder, sabotage, and looting in connection with attacks on a displaced persons camps on the outskirts of El Janina, according to a state prosecutor and 4 lawyers familiar with the case. Dozens of people were killed in the attacks, which took place in late 2019. The court proceeding against Angir and others was disrupted after the Sudanese military and RSF together seized power in a coup in 2021, the state prosecutor told Reuters. Interesting. So this man has been charged before, but it looks like maybe he's outside and free. Looks like he's still outside and free. So 3 people said they witnessed Angir directing forces during the El Janina attacks this year. Faisal, 26, a Masalit shop owner who took up arms to defend his family, said he saw Angir on May 13th leading a convoy of land cruisers carrying militiamen in Al Madris district. Faisal said he comes from the same district as Angir and recognized the well known commander's face. He was watching from a window in a building overlooking a narrow street as Angir's convoy passed through when he heard Angir ordering his men to move. A 39-year-old doctor said he spotted Angir in the company of militiamen at different checkpoints in the city as he traveled around to treat patients. Throughout the assaults, the RSF and air militias set up checkpoints in El Janina to control people's movement. The third man, a civilian turned fighter, said he saw Angir on June 16th with militiamen at a security installation in the west of El Janina, where residents trying to flee the city had gathered. Angir did not respond to questions from Reuters. Mazouj declined to comment. So even Sudan's own government and accused him of committing atrocities, yet and still he is walking free. Now, I know there's corruption in African nations. I know African nations are sometimes obsessed with wealth and you can sort of pay your way out of anything, which probably he did to escape the jail bars. But we have to have some standards as Black people. We have to have some standards to say that no matter how much money you have, the crime of slaughtering the innocents or attacking our people is not going to be something you can just walk away from and walk free from and still go outside with a horrible Jerry curl. In 2024, this man got a Jerry. That's a crime in and of itself. That is a crime against humanity. The crime against humanity right here is Musa Angir is not only hurting Black people by slaughtering them in the Masalit district of the Darfur region, he's committing crimes against fashion as well. This man should be stomped out, and so should his hair. I'm going to continue here. So here's another war criminal, Marfain. Yes. Okay, let's just get to this man. Boy, you look sick. Boy, you look ridiculous. Boy, you, boy, you slant-eyed bastard. You are a horrible representation of our people, wearing this stupid, the worst do-rag of all time, the most puffiest do-rag of all time, and you still ain't got waves. You still couldn't pull no hose. That's why you got to go and slaughter the Masalit people, pretending to be an Arab, talking about La ilaha illallah, talking about all the stuff that's in the Quran. Yet and still, you can't even see that in the Quran. Number one, number one rule: Allah has commanded us to be trill and keep it real. And boy, you are not keeping it real. Marfayin. What type of name is that? Marfayin sounds like a disease you catch. Marfayin sounds like a disease you catch when you eat old eggplant. He died of Marfayin. Man, stop, man. You look horrible. You look tragic. All right. So a relief worker said he spotted Marfayin in a market in El Janina, where he said men under the militiaman's command opened fire on the people and looted shops. Marfayin is a KOON, the word I can no longer say on YouTube because now apparently Black people calling out other Black people for KOON type behavior is against YouTube's community guidelines. I can't say that anymore. But once again, doesn't matter how dark skinned this man is, him and I are the same shade. But we do not have the same way of viewing the world. He views his Arab ethnicity or his Islamic faith as more important than his Blackness, allowing him to justify the slaughter of Black people, even if they look like him or come from the same place as him, speak the same language as him, come from the same religion as him, yet and still he is falling into tribalism. Tribalism was one of the number one things the Prophet forbid. It was one of the things in Jahiliyyah, which was the age of ignorance before Islam came, that the Prophet explicitly forbid the Muslims to indulge in and engage in. Yet, what do we still have throughout the Muslim world, out the Muslim world? What do we still have? We still have tribalism. We still have remnants of the age of Jahiliyyah amongst us. And this is absolutely wrong. This should not exist. Gonna jump into the comments here. Greg Max says, what up, Simon? Did you find me on the roster? How was hungry? I'm in Czech, not far away. Shout out to Craig Mack. No, I did not find you on the roster. You got to drop the link, man. But I'm sure you're a great baseball player, a handsome man, a very successful man, wealthier than me. So I'm sure you exist. You don't have to validate your existence by making me see the roster. But if you want to drop that link, I'll check it. But Hungary is dope. Really cold out here, somewhat. I have the windows open right now. My toes are freezing, but I'm still chilling in Hungary. Going to be starting school in a few months. Going to be going to university, getting my sociology degree. I got a new job out here. So, things are going well. I'm a Black man finding my way in this world, and nothing's going to hold me back. So I just got a new job teaching English out here. So, might do less YouTube because I'll be so busy, but I'll still come out here and chop it up with y'all and drop knowledge every now and then. Shout out to the Czech Republic. I have not been. I don't know what's the major city in Czech Republic. Bratislav? I don't know. I don't know what's the major city. Prague? Is Prague? the number one city in the Czech Republic. I'm not sure. Either way, Craig Mack says, keep grinding. I will keep grinding. I'm going to stay outside, keep on pushing. Yeah, Prague is the major city in the Czech Republic. Yeah, but Budapest is nice. I'm starting to like Budapest more, but I really want to get a crib on the Buda side, on the mountain side of the city. Budapest is dope. Have not been to Prague. I've heard it's a beautiful city too, but I'm really enjoying Budapest right now. But I'm kind of worried about Hungary staying in the EU or getting kicked out of NATO because they have, a crazy a geopolitical situation. They're still closely allied with Russia and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Let's just see what happens. Anyway, there's a continuation of this story about this guy, Marfain, the biggest KOON in the world, slaughtering black people in the name of Islam, who are the Black Masalit people of Sudan. So the militiaman is well known locally by his nom de guerre, Marfain, which means hyena in Sudanese Arabic. Four witnesses described seeing Marfain in action in the eastern part of El Janina. One of the other things that was forbidden in the age of Jahiliyyah was naming ourselves after animals. Like, I believe there's a hadith about a woman who named her son Fire, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, told the woman to not name your son Fire. So we're not supposed to name ourselves after animals or, other things other than honorable names. So I don't know why you would, as a Muslim, even allow people to call you the hyena. I remember when I was studying in Arabic, and I told my wife at the time, I was very proud of myself for something I did. And I said, Ana Kelb Kabir. Ana Kelb Kabir, which means I'm a big dog. Now in American English, that's like I'm the man, I'm the shit. You know what I mean? But she said, oh no, don't call yourself Kelb. Don't call yourself a dog, because in Arabic that's not considered tactful. That's not considered polite. So if I can't call myself a dog, why would you allow yourself to be called the hyena? That's not Islamic. Another thing I just wanted to point out here. So a Masalit man named Jamal said he encountered Marfain while shopping for food at the Aradeba market in northeast El Janina in late May. Marfain and militiamen under his command confronted Jamal and his companions and began questioning them about several individuals, including a Masalit lawyer. They made us lie on the ground and they asked us a lot of questions, said Jamal. When he and his companions denied knowing the individuals, he said the militiamen proceeded to beat them on their feet. They were later let go. Okay, that's hard to walk away from. You just got your feet beat up and now you got to walk away? Okay. Anyway, Reuters was unable to contact Marfain for his report. A relief worker with an international humanitarian agency said he came across Marfain in the Aradeba market around the same time in late May. The relief worker was moving from one district to another as he tried to evade the RSF's escalating attacks. He said he spotted Marfain one day after moving into a house on the edge of the market. Through a hole in the door, the relief worker said he could see Marfain leading a group of 9 armed men. The men were in a Land Cruiser mounted with an anti-aircraft gun and were firing randomly at people, the relief worker said. People in the streets were shouting, "It's Marfain, Marfain," as they fled. During the attack, 2 people fell to the ground while the rest escaped, the relief worker said. The militiamen then looted some shops, taking meat from a butchery and cash from vegetable sellers. I saw him with my own eyes, the relief worker said of Marfain. And that is the end of the story. Once again, shout out to Maggie Michael for the great writing here and everybody who's been covering this underreported story about the horrors that are happening in Sudan, to the African people. I know a lot of people say, Simon, why don't you talk about this? Why don't you talk about that? I am covering topics related to Black life all over the world, especially tragedies that are befalling our people that are going underreported. While everybody around the world is waving that Palestinian flag, while everybody around the world can get really upset about the mass extinction event happening in Gaza or any other tragedy or stupid stuff happening on social media, why are we not talking about the Black people who are literally being slaughtered by the Arabs in Sudan? This woman, her house was being burned down by Arab militiamen, and she decided she would rather stay in the burning house. And that's why she has these scars on her hand, rather than get sniped out by these people who put their religion first, who put their ethnicity first, who put tribalism first, before they put their blackness first, before they put humanity first. And this is the thing that I wanted to point out to all people. This is what I want to point out to all people. As Black people, we have to love each other. We have to appreciate each other. We don't have to hate each other. And on top of that, we should never put our ethnicities, our nationalities, our religions, all the other BS, all the other stuff that's been imported to us and forced upon us by the dominant societies. We should not put that above our Blackness. And we should not treat other human beings, regardless of their skin color, in such an inhumane way, such as what's happening in Gaza and especially what is happening in Sudan to the Masalit people. That's all I really have to say about this story. But nobody's going to watch this. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to share it. Nobody's going to actually talk about this. Y'all just wait for me to talk about the next celebrity gossip or the next big social media flare up. But nobody actually cares about Arabs slaughtering black people in 2023 and 2024 in Africa right now. Right now. Right now. Nobody cares about that, right? Okay. Anyway, that's all I have to say. More live streams coming through, more videos coming through. Y'all stay tuned on this channel. My name's Simon Hill. Peace. Shout out to Craig Mack and everybody else who watched, subscribed, liked this video, etc.